Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to change the world one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the amazing authors of a new book we have coming out, Find Your Voice, Save Your Life 3. Powerful healers, spiritual stories. And I have a little special place in my heart for this book because not only am I publishing it, but I actually have a chapter in this one. And having devoted my entire life to healing and that spiritual journey, that holistic healing journey, yes, I cannot wait to share these women's powerful stories with you. Ooh, this is going to be good, you guys. So this is the third book in a series by lead author Dianna Leeder. This is part of her Voices of Women project. And Dianna, thank you so much for getting this stellar group of women together to do this. And authors, thank you for saying yes. And not only for saying yes to just the project, but for stepping up to really share some vulnerable moments in your life. And I think I will speak for all of us when I say you did that partially with a mission to give other women permission to tell their stories. And I love you all for that so much. So everybody, Gina Maria Snowden is the founder of Healing Roots, an endeavor to integrate the ancient roots of healing into our daily lives. Lindy Picard is known as oh my gosh, you're going to have to help me with this one. Quapple Valley Medium. Did I get that right?
No.
Okay. Tell me what it says.
It says Quapel Valley Medium.
Quapel, thank you.
Yes,
Quapel Valley
welcome.
Medium, an energy healer. She guides people through their grief, healing, and finding their authentic selves. Mary Perry is the owner of Wings Unfurled, where she offers angel readings and healings to help her clients live their best life. So welcome, ladies. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so we're starting the party with Gina. So Gina, tell us about this amazing chapter that you wrote.
Well, I wrote chapter 3. It's called Not Broken, a spiritual journey through pain. When I was introduced to this series by my dear friend Bila, I was at her house and we were talking about things about writing. And I said, it took me many years to find my vocal voice, my audible voice. And now I want to find my voice in writing. And she just looked at me kind of strangely. And then she looked at a pile of papers she had on her table and she flipped them over. And it was the advanced reader copy of Find Your Voice, Save Your Life, Volume 2. And we just kind of had a moment together and said, oh, I'm supposed to be here right now. I'm supposed to hear this right now. I'm supposed to know about this. So she introduced me to Laura. And I jumped so quickly that I didn't have time to be afraid. And now it's a very surreal type of situation for me because I just really laid it out there and left it all on the dance floor, so to speak, in that chapter. And I was really amazed at the process and how it helped me even further. And being with this group of women and with you, Laura, and with Dianna has been such a healing journey that even though the story is very important to me, this process has enhanced my healing and increased my potential to help other people.
Thank you so much for talking about that aspect of the project. I always say to people coming into our world, this is way more than a book. And thank you, Gina, for saying some of the why it's more than that. And I love that you all prioritize your own healing with the storytelling. But the one thing I want to ask you about that you said first was you had already found the speaking voice and you hadn't found the writing voice. I think sometimes for some people that's turned around. The writing comes first, but the speaking still feels scary. Like, how did that go down for you?
Well, I think it had a lot to do with talk therapy. I've never been a journaler. I'm a team player, but I've never been one to be in support groups and things like that. Over the years, I was in the military for 28 years, and towards the end of my military career, I started therapy, and I was very hard to get to. Later, as a vet, I went back into therapy, and something broke open inside of me. And I've always been a very vocal person, but I really didn't tell my story. I really didn't say what I needed to say about the pain and about the journey, the real story. With a therapist, I was able to do that. And so I recommend, I'm one of those people that's totally a convert from I can't talk about this to now I can't shut up about it.
I was talking to somebody else about that that bit of the journey in terms, we were talking about being a really great listener, actually, and just part of the journey where there's so much of my life where my voice was squelched. Part of the journey was finding it again, couldn't shut me up, but then it had to circle back to, okay, now I can be an excellent listener because I don't always have to be the one, speaking out loud. And just how interesting that is for everybody that goes through it, and what they need and all those pieces to heal. I appreciate you sharing about that. So Lindy, let's go to you next.
Okay.
And hear about your amazing chapter. And I have to chuckle because when Lindy's video goes off, it shows the bee fucking amazing thing that she has on her Zoom screen. And it was while Gina was talking, and I was like, yes, we're going to be amazing today. So I got to love that. So go ahead, Lindy.
Yeah, I had to put that on my name as the phone, so it reminds me every single day when I see it. Yeah. So my chapter is 17, and it's called Embodying Strength, Courage, and Love, and Moving Forward by Freeing Yourself from the Past. So this has been something that, just like all of us, we've been on a healing journey, but coming into this book, literally, I believe everything happens for a reason. And it literally fell into my lap because I knew somebody else, right? So my friends, like, you got to meet Laura. And so Laura and I started talking, and Laura's like, I want you to be a part of this. And I truly didn't understand exactly what it was at first. I just knew it was a project. And then all of a sudden she's like, so I need you to write a chapter. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? Anyways, I put it out there for years that I was going to be a writer, and it's happening. So yes, and this journey too has also helped my children understand a little bit more about myself and my family too. So it's been a really good process for not only myself, but for others just around me. It's been an amazing experience.
Okay, I love how you snuck that little thing in there last. So I'm going to hold on to that one for just a minute, because
Okay.
you're not alone in terms of like other people learning about the others. I'm not talking about just any people, but the closest people in your family learning something about you. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I still have one of my 19-year-old son still lives with us, and I had him read over my chapter just, as I was doing it. And he put it down and he's like, this stuff happened to you? I was like, yes, it did, and it just kind of gave him an eye opener. And it came to a conversation where he goes, why don't I have any of this stuff in my life? And I said, because I've healed and you didn't have to. Right. And so it was a big turning point for me that I did a good job raising him, and my other son also too. But it was just one of those moments where he was like, wow. And I think it clicked for him that he's had, and I don't want to say it's been an awesome life, but he's had a really good, healthy life, and because of the choices I made because of my healing.
Yeah.
So it was really good. Yeah.
Really amazing. And I love the thought that we can heal backward and forward. And, so y'all know we had a little book launched this past week called The Ancestors Within. And in that one, it talks about the way that you do the work for yourself. So I love what you're saying about that, Lindy. It's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
So Mary, tell us about your amazing chapter.
Hi, everybody. My chapter is chapter 4, and it's called Loving Every Mistake. I don't believe we make mistakes in life. But this one, the subtitle is How to Forgive and Heal Your Heart. Just like all of us, and it's so interesting, you guys have talked about how healing this journey and writing this chapter is for you. Same thing for me. And I'm a little nervous, to be honest with you, that parts of this story come out with, if anybody in my family decides to read it, because my biggest trauma was from my dad, and the people in our family loved him, thought he was humorous, thought he was wonderful. Well, they experienced the good side of dad versus what I experienced growing up, which was the abusive father and the never being enough, all of those things. So as I started to write my chapter, I got a little nervous about it and then did some more healing around that, because I realized that that was another piece of my voice being shut down, that I was never brave enough to just stand up and say, hey, I know he was funny at times, but you didn't live with him the other times. Walking in our house was like walking on eggshells a lot of times. And for me, it wasn't just a one-time voice shutdown. It was over and over and over again. And when I was 40 and he passed away, and I got introduced to the angels a year after he died in big ways, was that I realized I have power. I have the power to open up, to really heal some of that old stuff. And what I never want is anybody to feel sorry for me, because I absolutely look at the bigger picture in all that happened in my life. It absolutely had purpose. It's made me who I am today. And you know what? I'm fucking awesome. And it's amazing to own that. And this book, and I'm actually part of the Ancestors Within, the second book there, has helped me own who I am. And that is so healing in many more ways than I can even put words to right now. So I'm grateful to be here with you guys. I'm grateful to have written this chapter about some dark times in my life. But the other part of that is opening and being the survivor and healing and then moving forward. So I feel like we all are there. So thank you guys for being here with me.
Yes, and thank you to all of you for just not just saying yes to the project, but then stepping forward in those ways that you just mentioned, Mary, and sharing the vulnerable stories. You all know that there's the healing in the stories. When we hear it, we have moments for ourselves. You had moments writing them for yourselves. There's a lot of really awesome, magical healing energy in those processes, both of the directions. And I think I said it earlier, but we're giving people permission to even just think about how it would feel to tell their story for the first time. And there's a level of it in journaling, right? I always suggest people just move it out of you. Get it on the page. And they might say to me, well, I don't want anyone to read it. Like, what if somebody gets a hold of it, right? So burn the pages. And that's because the process is more important than actually the words being out on the page. It's the shift of the energy. And so many times the authors will tell me, oh my gosh, I'm surprised about what I ended up writing about, or what came out, and all of the things. So yay for you all that you said yes, but that you didn't quit after you said yes. After it started to feel a little scary, I know. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, what did I get myself into? And then you did it anyway. So, and I wrote it down, Gina. I jumped so quickly, I didn't have time to be afraid. I loved that you said that earlier. So, okay, so I'm going to get to another question coming around to all of you, and I'm going to start with Lindy for this one. Okay, so to me, being a healer is about guiding people on the journey. It's about awareness, and y'all are teaching awareness tools in these beautiful stories and chapters. So feeling is healing. So helping empower people to feel is part of it in the way that I think about it. So Lindy, I kind of just want to know what your personal awareness practice looks like on the day-to-day. How do you get into the feelings?
Right. So that took a long time, obviously, right? Because it's easier to shove those feelings away. and just carry on what we feel is normal. But what should be normal is feeling every emotion that we have, because it's there for a reason, right? So once I kind of figured that out, just honestly taking time for ourselves, right? And really listening to our bodies, listening to those messages that are coming in, because we're constantly guided, and we're constantly having, being guided to something better than what we feel we even deserve sometimes, right? So it's just taking that time. I walked. That's what I did. I would take time to walk. I'm a water element too, so I live at the lake. So I'd walk around the lake and just really start to enjoy that time instead of feeling like I had something else to do, and started to remember that I'm important too, right? That taking that time to just feel. And yes, it's not comfortable when you're feeling sad or angry, but those feelings also get lighter the more that you can honor them too, because it's still part of our story, right? It makes us who we are. And so before, when I wrote this, I live 50 steps from my parents. Okay. So I went over to my mom. I said, okay, I'm doing this project. And just to let you know, there's going to be some things that you don't know about me or how I feel about some things, and they're going to come out. And she goes, good.
Thanks,
So it's been,
Mom.
yeah, exactly. So it's just been really good, because we really need to connect with how we feel about things, because it does matter, right? How somebody treated us or those kind of things. So it's just honoring our feelings and knowing that every part of those feelings there's a reason for them, right? And to know that the sadness comes, but how to deal with it positively, how the anger comes, but deal with it positively. And when the happy comes, deal with that in greatness, right? And so, and honor those times too, all of them. So it was a process. And I think that's what people are scared of too, is that they want it, that I put it in my story, they wish that there was an easy button, right? And there's not. It's honoring every part of yourself and taking that time for yourself, right? So that's where I was. It's just taking the time to connect.
Yes, thank you,
Yeah.
Lindy.
Yep.
Amazing. Being in the moment. I'm on that walk with you, right? When you start to talk
Mhm.
about it. And the thing that you said that hit me the most is go for the walk, but don't worry about all the rest of the stuff that you feel like you should be doing other than taking the walk. Like, it's good enough right there.
Right. And it's a form of meditation too,
Mm.
right? So, and I get a lot of messages for myself while I'm walking, and sometimes for other people too, but it's just a good time to connect to yourself and to the spirit, like to the spirits that are around you and the guidance that's around you. I honor it all the time. It's amazing.
Yes, beautiful. Thank
Mhm.
you. So, Mary, I'm going to move to you for this question. What's that practice look like for you on the day-to-day?
So my practice is that meditation needs to be part of it. And like Lindy, it doesn't have to be formal meditation where I'm sitting and just taking all the thoughts out. It can be outside. I live on the water myself, so having that spirit of nature come in and refocus, help me rebalance and recenter myself is huge. After I do a session here in my office, I always go outside. I go outside to ground to let go of all of the stuff that may have come to me through that session, from somebody else. So for me, that's a huge piece of my practice. Um, Feeling the feelings I certainly get, because for years I was the good little girl who sat with her hands crossed, feet on the floor, not moving, not speaking. That was how I grew up. And it's so important to feel the feelings. And there are times when I would have never said I was an angry person. Guess what? I had a lot of anger in me. Didn't realize it until probably the last 4 or 5 years, how much I needed to heal that piece, because, it's not about carrying that. And so for all of us, it is okay to feel angry. You don't want to be an angry person, but you want to feel the anger. You want to feel the sadness. You don't want to walk around angry, but you're going to be sad sometimes. I mean, the world makes me sad at times these days. It also gets me angry on some days, and that's perfectly okay. But it's not holding on to it, not making it a part of you. That's really important. And that, I don't know how I was wise enough to know all that. I have no idea. Um, but it just came over the years. So yeah, so I'm with you guys on that one, big time.
So I heard something, recovering good girl. Anyone? Yeah. But you also, I heard something else there that I'm realizing that when somebody says to me, settle down or calm down, that is like a massive trigger for me because of the years I spent squeezing smaller so that I could, whatever that meant, settle down or calm down, right? You're too much, like you're too loud, you're too much. So just go into your corner.
Yep.
Holy moly. Holy moly. Takes a lifetime sometimes, right? Thank you, Mary. Gina, how about you? How does this practice look like in your day-to-day?
Very kinesthetic person. I'm very physical. And what I had to do was to channel that into my meditative and spiritual and emotional mental practice. So what I do is before I even get out of bed, I get into my body. So it could be just as simple as some joint freeing exercises, a little qigong to get the qi to my fingers and toes and to get it flowing in my body and to get it to my brain and to be standing out of bed with awareness of where my feet are, where my spine is located, and having good spinal alignment, and then stepping forward through the day. I walk a lot. Being out in nature is a lot. It's everything to me. If I'm in nature, I'm much more creative. I'm much more calm. I also live right near the water. The marina is right out my window. And in Chinese medicine, we have the 5 elements, and I pull very strongly towards fire. And in the 5 elements, water balances the fire. So water is very important to me. Sometimes when I get really wound up, I can just wash the dishes. And I never understood why washing the dishes calmed me down, or mopping the floors, not sweeping, not vacuuming or dusting, but those items, those things. And it was because of the water element. So I spend a lot of time either taking showers, taking baths, jacuzzi, swimming if I'm in a place that I can swim, or walking near the water. That helps connect me to my source. It grounds me to all the elements. As far as spiritually, it's within those physical sheaths that I find my spirituality, because I lost it, and I lost a lot of the connection to self. And getting it back, I realized that it's incorporated in every layer of my being. And by gathering those layers, I can't just put down the physical layer and say, oh, that's not important now, I'm very spiritual. I still have to incorporate that physical layer because it's carrying around my spirit. It's carrying around who I am. And it is very important to me because it helps me navigate the world and take care of myself and others. So self-care has, as I said in my chapter about self-care, to me, it was a word or a phrase that didn't get overused. It has importance every time I say it. It's like a power word for me, self-care. So I practice self-care daily, not always enough, but even being aware of the fact that I did not practice enough for that particular day is a far cry from where I used to be, where I could not feel my fingers and toes or know where I was in space, even though I taught fitness classes and yoga and could stand on one leg and close my eyes. I still couldn't tell you where I was in space. So now having that consolidation and realizing that to keep that consolidation, I need to address all those different layers. And I try to do that in some way every single day. And some layers get more attention than others. And then again, that's part of the process, is being aware of that. Today, my mind needs more attention. So I'm going to read something that challenges me. Today, my body needs more attention. I'm going to foam roll for a half hour and then go lift some weights or go walk 4 miles or whatever. Some days it's going to be my spiritual part. So I'm going to go on YouTube and find me a really amazing video that just rocks my world and listen to it. So I just try to be a holistic day-to-day because trying to stick to really hard goals that I used to try to do, my military mind was like, okay, now you're going to do this. You're going to do 90 minutes of yoga. Okay, now you're going to meditate for exactly 15 minutes. You're going to do qigong for 30 minutes. And this carried forward into just more frustration. So now I find that if I allow it to come naturally, I end up doing what I'm supposed to do.
Thank you for sharing your process. I want to reiterate something Gina said in the very beginning, which was she sets an intention from the very moment she wakes up by getting into her body. And I'll just encourage our listeners and viewers that that would be how you could set your day up differently, is as your eyes open in the morning, right? What are you thinking? What are you doing? Are you even realizing that you have an opportunity to be more embodied, like Gina was talking about? I move to gratitude right away as I am becoming more in my body. And it's just such a powerful practice to start your day and actually end your days. I bookend my days like that, but encouraging people to start their morning in a way that really feels healthy to them and good, right? It's going to look different for everybody. So, okay, so I have a next question for all of you. I'm going to start with Mary for this one. And this is a little bit of a juicy one. I'm going to read a little bit of my notes on this one for you. So there's so much in life that we can't see, but we believe. And I know part of sharing our spiritual stories is to help give other people permission to have those kinds of conversations, right? To help them not feel crazy, to help them feel not alone in that, and to provide the community, right? I love playing in the sandbox with my healers and having these amazing conversations. So what I want to hear about today, Mary, from you first is, tell me about your spiritual community. What has that meant to you?
Gosh, that has meant everything, absolutely everything. Without it, I don't know where I would be. When I started this journey in the 90s, I was attending development classes that were in someone's basement, and we walk down the steps very quietly. And, now to see the changes in the last 25 years has been amazing, because you don't have to be quiet anymore. You don't have to silence those voices. At the time when I started walking with the angels, I was working for the American Cancer Society. And at lunch, we'd have a lunch table. And I was so excited when I'm a Gemini, you guys. And so every time I have stuff go on, I have to share those stories. I mean, that's just who I am. So at the lunch table, I would be very boisterous about my experiences. Well, there was one day that I was talking about seeing dead people from something I had been on the weekend before, and we were, ghost hunting kind of thing. And so we're walking, I'm talking, and all of a sudden I look up, and everybody at the lunch table was looking down and very quiet. And I went, ooh, I went a little bit too far. So I stopped for that day, but it didn't stop me from sharing these experiences, because for me, that's how I grow. And I believe that everybody that listens or comes in has an opportunity to grow, to find something. There are so many paths back home. Our journeys are really varied, and nothing needs to look the same. And I always tell people, if someone tells you it's my way or no way, hit the highway. No, doesn't work. And so for me, I've started a Facebook group called the Angelic Vibe Tribe. And I have a number of members on there, and I'm beginning to grow that a little bit more. But it's about angels for me. I mean, angels were the way in and the way to heal myself. You don't have to be a master, claircognizant, clairvoyance, clairaudient. You just have to sit quietly and listen every once in a while. We all have the clairs. We just need to develop what works for us. And even if you don't say it's a clair, there's messages that come in different ways. And so I want to encourage people, and that's what my Angelic 5 tribe is to encourage people to go inside. My ideal client, I think Lindy said, is not the one that wants the easy button. That's not who I am. And I want somebody who's a seeker, who wants to, through self-empowerment, figure out their inner wisdom and find their healing path in their journey along the way. And if we can share that for some of the time, God bless us all. It works for many different people. So, yeah.
Awesome, Mary. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Gina, I want to hear about what this spiritual community idea has meant to you.
It's meant a lot. When I started yoga, it was in the late 70s. I was in high school, and I think it was like 78, 79. And I did it in secret because it was considered the devil's work or something like that. It was weird. It was hippie. I found a yoga book in our library, Richard Heidelman's 21 Days to Yoga. And I read that like porn and practiced yoga. And I taught myself yoga for probably the first 10, 15 years of my yoga journey, and found other books and eventually a few other people. And I had my first yoga teacher in 2000 in Hawaii. And I tell you this story because that's about how my spirituality went. I didn't quite fit in anywhere. So everything I learned through reading, or somebody'd say something and then I'd have to follow up. But I did everything in a vacuum. I did a lot of things in a vacuum. I didn't have a lot of guidance or other people that were saying, me too, and yeah, I agree with you, or look at this. So I felt like I was following breadcrumbs most of my life. And most of the spiritual communities that were out there were, Mary brought up a very good point. They were like so far above where I was at. I felt like, oh, I can't go there. They're just too smart for me, or they're too elevated, and I don't hear those things and I don't see those things, but I believe them and I want to see them. I want to hear them. So over the years and more recently, I have become very satisfied with the small communities like this one. Being able to sit with Diana's open mic on Monday, for instance, and talk story about spiritual things that happen, and join in on some of the Facebook stuff, or just casually cruise and listen to what people are saying. I find that that's been very helpful to me. I was in a Sangha in Hawaii for many years, and being in that Sangha, meditating and mantra was very helpful. I felt like just being in the group was enough for me. Now I'm feeling that I'm ready to evolve into some of these other groups and being more with other people. I don't feel like I have to just be by myself any longer. I will say that the advantage of being by myself has allowed me to listen to my own voices better, instead of trying to follow other people's way and trying to trail after the big sister, teach me, teach me, teach me. Now I'm more comfortable with, okay, what are you hearing, Gina? Who's trying to get to you? Or what are you seeing in this situation?
You know, what a lot of you have talked about, I think, and I heard Gina say it again, is that depending on the day, depending on the moment, depending on what is going on and where you are on the journey, there's going to be something that fills you up a little bit more right then. And with the awareness, we get to choose. And then the next moment we get to choose again. And the next one might be something different. I think I loved what you said earlier too, Gina, about how you were so regimented in your routines at one point in your life. Now you're just like, I don't want that. I don't want anyone to tell me that it has to be 1 hour of this and 15 minutes of this. And it's so important to listen to our own internal language about what we're needing in general, but right now. And so I'm just hearing a little bit of that in how you're talking about this today. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So Lindy, how about you on this side? You know, that was a loaded question too, because it was about belief and seeing things and not seeing things and community. So what are you thinking on this one?
Well, I was born this way. You know, I'm pretty sure there's a song that says that too, right? So it's like, I was born this way. So, and not having anybody to talk to about it, right? And my grandma's a schizophrenic, right? So it's almost like, oh my God, am I going down that road, right? And because it caused such turmoil in our lives, and a big part of my chapter too. So it was like one of those things. But as I got older, I realized that, and just like, even when I was like 10 years old, I was like, no, there's something different about this, right? Where I would ask a question in my head and I would get answers back. But it wasn't even like, it was different than what I saw what my grandma was going through, right? So it was a process for me, and I kept a lot of it hidden. My parents were they didn't understand it, but very encouraging, and they didn't tell me it wasn't happening. Like they were just, and they're still really good about it. They're proud of me and those things, but I didn't have anybody to talk to that could relate, you know, until I was probably in my 20s. And until I was in my 30s, I was doing my cards without anybody knowing. I was doing readings, but it was because I knew I would test the waters first, right? I'm like, so what do you think about this? Or wait for cues from them. And now I don't give a freaking care at all. I would just shout from the rooftops what I can do, because over the last 20 years, I've seen what work I can do, not only for myself, but how I've been helping people over the last 20 years find themselves, find their voices. And my very first thing that I seen, because I'm from a very small town, is I was walking down the street one day, and in this window there was pendulums and crystals, and it said opening soon. And I just stood there. I'm like, oh, yes. Like I literally got fired from a volunteer position helping people because I was a medium. Right. And which I was doing for 10 years prior. And then all of a sudden it became a problem. So it was like, because there was something else going on there. Right. So there was such stigmas, and there is still today to a certain extent, but the doors have opened so wide, right, that I'm not afraid that we're going to go back to the 1800s and get, hung, or, because when we talk about our feelings and our emotions, people do realize that we have to get connected, and there's something else if you just sit with yourself. So it is coming along. But it was a tough go, because for a very long time, I had nobody that would relate with me, right? Or who knew what I was going through. I was seeing things, I was hearing things, I knew when stuff was going to happen, like all of these things. And it was so nice to be able to start to gather people, even if it was for a short period of time, who was like-minded too, or even just was interested. So I feel it's an amazing thing that's happening here. This book is something too that, even if somebody thought something was going on with them, that they can maybe go, it is true, or I need to listen more, right? So, and especially if people are feeling alone, right, and don't have anybody else, we're never alone, right? And I've realized that, but it was like having that community, whether it's one person or 20 or 100, is super important, because we all need to be connected in some sort of way. Because in my book, we all have some of the same chapters, right? Our books have a different title, but we have some same chapters in our lives, regardless if they've been good, bad, or indifferent, right? So it's communicating and not being afraid to communicate or use our voices, right? That's where it comes down to. Yeah, I would get a bullhorn and go from the top of the Empire State Building. Mm-hmm. now.
So it's cool to have a circle of like-minded people, but you said something that really kind of got me. Some days I just want people to be interested. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So just the curiosity would be nice.
Yep.
Like-minded is cool. That's even better, but even just to be curious and aware. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people have come to me and they're like, I don't believe you. I'm like, well, why are you here? Right. And it's not, I don't have great satisfaction in turning people around, but I'm like, good job, Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right, ladies. So I have one more question for you. And Gina, I'm going to start with you for this one. There are people who are watching and they're listening to us today, and they might just be stepping onto that path. And they're curious, right? We would like for them to be curious. That's why they're about to step that toe in the pool and dip it in. What advice would you give to someone as an easy one thing? I know y'all have like a million things you could talk about right now, but what's one easy entry point for somebody who's dabbling?
I would say, depending on the way they learn, I would read about it, simply read about it. If they're a visual processor, I would say get on YouTube and watch what resonates with you about the subject. If it's yoga, if it's meditation, if it's spirituality, workout even, whatever way your brain processes the information the best, that's how I would say step in there. If it's talking to somebody, talk to people that have done it before, ask the questions. But there's a lot of information that you have in yourself. You start with yourself. What do I know about this subject? What do I want to know about the subject? I think that's really important. And most of all, listen to the voice within. Listen to themselves. If something doesn't seem right, it may not be right. If something feels good, let's go ahead and pursue that. But it starts with them.
Okay, well, you had me at read about it, right? Okay.
I'm all about that.
Okay, Lindy, what are you going to add to this? What's one simple entry point for people?
I do this with everybody that comes to me, or even just ask questions, is start to listen to your intuition. Truly, because we can second guess it all day long and for years, right? So our intuition, we're being guided. So, feel it, listen to it, follow it, right? Even if we don't like the answer, it's there for a reason. And then you can start to even trust your own self, right? Because you're going to see the ripple effect of when you start trusting and listening to yourself. You're going to see that things do work out, even though you were second guessing it, or you second guessed it before. So it's about listening to that, like Gina said, that inner voice, because we're all being guided. And if you can't trust your inside voice that's coming from other places, what can you trust? Right. And the reason why we second guess ourselves is because we're like, I don't like how that feels, or my head says we can't do that. Right. So our gut is what we need to learn to listen to, your intuition. And you can even do tests with that too. So it's intuition, follow it. Yeah.
Love
not
it.
just listen and feel. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Mary, you're going to wrap up this party today. What's your one place that people can step on the journey?
My advice is to give yourself permission to break the cycles of the limiting thoughts and patterns that just because it's happened all the time in your life, you don't just step up and do things the same way. You have choices. Listening to the intuition, trusting who you are, and going into your heart to make sure it's coming from the right place. My head is very active. And there are just times when I have to tell my ego and my head voice to sit on my left shoulder as a silent observer, because I am listening to my heart today and moving with guidance and with the inspirational voices that I hear. Maybe everybody doesn't hear them, but we have those thoughts that come in, and those thoughts, if they come from a different headspace than like, Mary, this is not the right thing to do. If it sounds different and feels different, guess what? That's your intuition. That's your guidance talking. So, but sometimes we have to give ourselves permission to believe and to listen. And I think it all starts there. Just start.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mary. So to all of you, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everyone. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
So I want all of our viewers to know that you can join us on November 22nd at noon Eastern when we celebrate with a live stream book launch party. I'm going to have all of the Find Your Voice, Save Your Life 3 authors there with us, and that's going to be on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page. So I have you hooked up in the notes with that link. If one of these amazing authors said something today that really sparked you, then please drop down into the notes where I have their websites. Take a little click journey and go see what they offer. Connect with them. One of the biggest missions I have is to not only just put out a book that gets you curious, but then create a community that can continue the conversation with you, that can support the questions and the next step on your journey. So all of our authors are very generously there for you all. And one of the places that you're going to find them is in Dianna Leeder's free group on Facebook. So join everybody in the Find Your Voice Women group there. And you can ask questions after you read one of the chapters. We've got the authors of all of our volumes in there. I think that is an incredible gift that we're giving, you know, so you read a chapter and then you're like, what now what? Well, we have the answer to now what for you. So come on into the group and be with us and ask your questions. We cannot wait to, you know, be with you and answer them and support you on the journey. And lastly, today, everybody, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it is time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. Thank you, authors.
Thank you.
Thank you.